Hi, I'm Jamie Wright, middle school librarian, and I'm here to help you find your next great book. Today's episode of Middle School Book Talks is about books that require 10,000 tissues, almost certainly guaranteed to make you cry, and you're going to love it. Good Dog by Dan Gemeinhart is the most crying book ever. You will cry at the beginning, you will cry in the middle, you'll cry at the end, and you'll be grateful for the whole journey. The story opens when Brody, a very good dog, has already died and he's supposed to go to heaven. But he can't leave his boy because his boy still needs him. So he sticks around and he lives in an in-between place, trying to figure out how to help his boy, even if his boy can't see him anymore. But there are bad dogs and cats who also live in the in-between, and they can sense Brody's goodness, and they want to feed off it to nourish themselves. Brody has to figure out how to help his boy at any cost, even if it means risking his good dog soul to do it. Falling Over Sideways by Jordan Sonnenblick doesn't start out like a crying book. In fact, the main character, Claire, is pretty spoiled and a little bit annoying. She's worried about not having a place in the advanced dance class, and there's a boy at school who seems committed to tormenting her, plus her family doesn't seem to listen to her as much as she wants. She has a lot of complaints until one day she's talking to her father and he falls over with a medical emergency. Suddenly, on his long road to recovery, what seemed critically important has completely shifted. And Claire feels guilty for all her small worries when there are so many big ones front and center. She turns some things around, and if you ugly cry at the end of this book, nobody will blame you. Red, White, and Whole by Rajani LaRocca is a Newbery Honor book written in verse. Rhea is an Indian American living in the US in the 1980s, and she feels torn between her family's traditions and what feels like strict expectations, and being the only Indian American student among her classmates. She's trying to pull away from her parents and become her own person when her mother becomes sick and her world crashes around her. Rhea wants to become a doctor eventually, but for now, she decides that if she can be the perfect daughter, that will keep her mother safe and well. This is a book with gorgeous writing, and any reader who has ever felt that tension between parents and teenagers will connect to the love and the struggle in this story. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo. I can see why you would think this is a book for younger readers and not so much for middle school. But you might be familiar with reading The Velveteen Rabbit or Charlotte's Web when you're older, and how you understand it differently than when you read it when you were a younger person. And this book is that same way. Edward Tulane is a China rabbit, and he's pretty snobby about his fine clothes and his fancy life. The little girl he belongs to loves him, sometimes a little too much. But accidents happen, and Edward is separated from the little girl. He takes an unexpected journey, and he meets all kinds of different individuals and families. And even though he can't talk, he starts to understand what it really means to love and be loved. It's a beautiful story. The Underneath by Kathi Appelt is one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. I will say that this is a book that's a little unusual in its style and plot and characters, so it might be harder for some readers to get into. But if you give this book a chance, you will never forget its characters. Ranger is an old dog chained in a space under a tilting house. The calico cat and her kittens who share that space love Ranger, but they all know to avoid the angry man who lives above them. There is a giant alligator lurking nearby in the bayou between Texas and Louisiana. Another long-forgotten creature, the alligator's friend, is seeking vengeance. And all of their stories and dreams combined with a little magic, more than a little tragedy, and a story of love, loyalty, and family. It will break your heart to read about the terrible things happening to innocent characters, and you will never be the same after you have met and known them. It is the best kind of heartbreak. That's it for this episode of Middle School Book Talks, books sure to make you cry. If you're looking for more great books, reach out to your librarian. And remember, a book is always a good idea.